I'm sitting here in Manchester, England. I've been here a week. We've been working on stage with the show and sitting basically in the dark for pretty much to 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And the experience gravitates between being unbelievably exciting, because watching this thing become real, this show become realized from conception to manifestation, is a remarkable and I think unique experience for people. It doesn't happen very often. But what's so fascinating about it is that for much of the time, someone like me has nothing to do. I just sit in the dark. And I am watching things happen. Mostly people are moving around, moving lights, trying different techniques on the stage. Different things are happening, very long periods of what appears to be like nothing happening, although that's not true, because the room that we're in is looks like mission control at NASA. The entire theater has been taken over by people with banks and banks of computers, and they are manipulating lights. They're manipulating a grid system that moves around the entire stage that is filled with these LED lights that are extraordinary. We are watching sets being put up, taken down, props coming in and out, the thing called a travelator, which moves things across the stage. Actors who have to try on new costumes, new wigs, I mean, on and on and on. It's so much going on, but a lot of the time it's just going on in the dark, behind the scenes. You just see all these people sitting at their computers, really hundreds of people working, and it's kind of amazing, and it's especially amazing to think that it's all there in service of this idea. And this idea came from, I still don't know where it came from, somewhere deep inside this brain. This idea emerged of telling a story. And the story originally was the story of what is it like to be a ghost? What is it like to be outside of life, looking at life? And I didn't always know how to tell that story. In the beginning I just knew that it was the source of something, and then one day I watched a production of Hamlet and saw the ghost on the parapet, the father of Hamlet, telling him, "Revenge my death," and that's when I got the spark that said, this is how I tell my story. Something in 20th century America that would be, I thought, a very powerful tale for our time and culture. And it has proven to be that, and now it's having a new incarnation into a musical. And so I sit in the theater and I watch all this activity happening, and there's a small part of me that thinks, well, I had something to do with this, and it's kind of, in an ego-minded way, kind of satisfying and fulfilling. And then there's another part of me that just sits there and knows that I had very little to do with this, that it is happening. It's just something that's happening. This is the experience of being this particular form, this particular person. And I get to be part of that unfolding. The thing that's so wonderful about it is to see so many brilliant minds and talents contributing to this same effort, and to know that there's no central person in any of this. Certainly my centrality, if it was there at some point, is long gone. I'm just a presence in the midst of all of this extraordinary unfolding that is taking place. And it is both joyous and very strange, because most of the time, at least for this being here, there's nothing to do. Just sit. And in a very dark space. I mean, so dark that you have to trip over things to find where you're sitting. And they've given me part of a big bank of computers, and I sit near the director and the assistant directors and the choreographer, and I just sit there and I get very quiet and I watch and I experience this. Much of the time, in the silence, things begin to float up, and what really seems to float up more than anything is the dark crevices of Bruce. These old, unexplored, lost, forgotten parts of the Bruce personality that in this incredible stillness have announced themselves. So much of my childhood insecurity, if you will, much of my early personality has started to sort of make itself known. And in making itself known, I have to say, it arises with all the same discomforts that it had when I was 5 years old or 3 years old. The same kind of intensity. But the difference is, I have grown into what is almost next week at least a 68-year-old man. I will become 68 years old. And so here's a 68-year-old looking back at a 4-year-old mind with the kind of clarity that that time and distance gives you. But there's something else beyond that, which is, it's no longer so much Bruce looking back. It's just witnessing the journey of a soul from its inception into its manifestation. It's very much like watching the musical form. It comes from some indescribably small, tiny little spark of something, and then it grows. And as it grows, it goes through all sorts of changes. It has to go through all sorts of experimentation. There's a lot of deep experience that goes on starting at the very beginning. And it's, you know, right now it's like I'm dealing with 2 grandchildren. I'm dealing with Talia, who's a living, breathing entity, and I'm dealing with a musical, which is the offspring of a movie that I wrote. So it's 2 grandchildren, and they're both going through the same kind of growing pains, in the same way that I'm sitting in the theater looking back on the whole history of this creative spark that became Bruce. So there's this sense of new life forming. There's this sense of old life being a feeding system into the new life, because it's all part of the continuum. And I sit there and watch it with a kind of awe. For me, the extraordinary thing is that there has been, through years and years of spiritual practice, a kind of capacity to step back from it. A capacity to just be with it, to observe, to be one with, and not in opposition to what is presenting itself. This has taken decades of effort. And it's been an extraordinary thing to be able to sit and look at something and appreciate it in a place of stillness. Because stillness gives you perspective, it gives you awakening, and it allows you this extraordinary thing, which is that you can enter into the pain and suffering of a past life experience, or even watch somebody like Talia, who goes through her days. You know, she has days where she's crying because she can't articulate her need, she can't articulate her pain. Crying is the only voice that she has, and she uses it very effectively. The musical has its own birth pangs. There are things that happen on stage that don't work. They have to be reconceptualized, rearranged. And there are things in our own lives that don't work, that have to be redone. And that goes on all the way through. And what's really fascinating to me is this thing of going back deep down into the crevices of Bruce and watching how many of the fundamental elements of my life were formed early on in the first stages of my exploration of life on this planet. And that early stuff is there. It's locked into the system. It's part of your structure. And you don't see it, you don't know it's there, you have no idea how much impact it's having on you until you get really quiet, really still, and enter, for me, this prolonged dark space. I know that sounds odd. I'm sitting in a darkened auditorium with stuff happening on a stage in front of me, but I'm really sitting there in the dark. I might as well be in a Buddhist cave. And I'm just sitting there in observation of all of this stuff. One of the things you realize when this stuff comes up is it is as painful today as it was when I was 4 years old, or 3 or 1 month old. It's just as painful, or just as awesome. I have moments, I have to say, when I look at the stage and I'm filled with so much awe at what's happening that I want to cry. The tears, the beauty of it. And I got a picture the other day of Talia, who was lying on the floor looking up at a series of silks that Evan and Josh had put together, these great colorful silks that were like a mobile. And she was looking at it in a state of transfixed joy. Unbelievable joy. And when I sit in that theater, I look at the stage with exactly the same expression, like, oh, I cannot wait for people to see and share the joy that I experience watching it. But then, you know, the lights go down, everything changes, and I'm back in pure darkness. And in that darkness, there is this deep self, this deep struggling entity that is working its way through the world. And it is happening in every one of us. This deep thing is working even as I'm talking to you now, and it's buried under layers and layers and layers and layers of experience, of choices, of experiments, of realizations, of failures to have realizations. But there it is. And the gift of this moment is that I am starting to allow these darker aspects, these unexplored places of formative being, to announce themselves and just be with them. And it's remarkable. It's as if you can give voice to, or give consciousness to, these unnameable, unexpressible feelings that you have when you're, a month old, or 4 days old, or 4 months old, or 4 years old. There's stuff going on that is making you who you have become. And in order to become truly free, you have to move down and visualize or see or enter into that reality and just be with that. It opens you deeper and deeper and deeper. This awakening that occurred in October, which felt like it was the end of something, is really, as I've said I think a number of times now, the beginning of something. It's the beginning of real spiritual work. You really start to go in and undo all the confusion. You undo all of the unexplored sort of morass of things that has pushed you forward unconsciously into becoming who you are. You go back into all of that and you open the door. And you just sit there and you observe you. You and all of your early formative self. And it's amazing to be with that space. It's amazing to be with you. And then you watch how all that floods out into today, into the world today. I find there's so many things going on in the theater, so many social things that are going on that are very interesting to me, because they really, they're things that are hard for me. The who loves me, who doesn't love me, who accepts me, who doesn't accept me. None of this stuff is really going on. People seem to be very, very fond of me there, but there's all of these issues inside of deep insecurity. And I'm just going, well, why? Why would I have these insecurities? These are like high school insecurities, or elementary school, or early kindergarten stuff. Why would that still be there? I thought all that stuff had kind of been worked out. But again, sitting in the dark, you discover how old so many of these patterns are, how powerful these patterns are, and they are there to be worked through. And you can't work through them until you sit still, dig deep, observe, be present with yourself. The deepening liberation is to go, aha. And I'm discovering so many new skills, so many new capacities in this new space inside. One of them is the capacity to activate changes in life, the ability to approach situations from completely different angles than you ever would have chosen before, the ability to take charge of every second of your life, to own it consciously, to know that it is there for you to work with. Life is much more plastic, it's much more malleable, it's much more available to manipulation, if you will, than you ever dreamt. You can make things happen. You can make things occur for yourself. You can redirect your life. It takes a certain kind of belief, it takes a certain kind of relaxation, a certain kind of openness, and a stillness to clearly sense what wants to happen. And then you just act on it. And then you just follow this thing forward. I have this something, I can't describe it, telling me in a way what to do. Saying, you can do this. A voice I've never heard before. A voice that's given me a kind of empowerment that I haven't known before. It's a deep knowing. It's just a deep knowing. It tells you how to live, moment to moment. I often talk about having your rudder in the water. This is the rudder moving through the water, and something about it knows where to go all the time. And you just follow that. And life is remarkable, moment to moment, remarkable. Everything that happens in your life, moment to moment, starts to be part of a conscious presence, starts to become part of a living truth, a living reality. And you are that thing. Until it's not there, you're there, and you're it. and you live in this space, and you either find awe in it or you cringe. You hide from the truth. The truth is how big it is, how powerful it is, and how much capacity you have to work it, to live it, to do it, to make it happen. More than you ever imagined, you can make it happen. But it takes this detachment, because most people are so locked into their form, so locked into their structure, that they can't see it from a different angle. When you let go of that locked-in nature, all the possibilities start to show themselves, and then something rises up which says, this is the way you go. And you just go. And you start to redefine your relationships, you redefine your life, you redefine possibility, and then the world starts to reform around you. It's hard to explain, but it is. The world is in direct relationship or direct dialogue with you, and it is working to give you what it wants, which is what you want. And it's astounding, the plasticity of existence, how much it cooperates with you. Even when you are in a state of total confusion, it is there for you. Most people, however, never engage it. They never engage life. They find the safe little hole to crawl in, and they stay in their hole. And they stay there and they go, this is where I will be safe. That's what they want. That's okay. You can do it. There's no judgment in that. But when you find this depth of surrender, this depth of opening, this depth of awakening, if you will, all of this is yours. It's yours. This does not mean that you will have necessarily a shamanistic control over the nature of life, that you can move clouds through the sky, although I see how one could do that. How you could make it rain. Yes, perhaps you could do that. But it's not about that. It's about this working together with this fundamental internal drive to make life what it wants to be. There's no longer what you want it to be exactly, because there becomes a point where you and it are the same thing, where it's where what it wants to be. And what it wants to be has the flavor of your life. It has the flavor of your hunger and desire and need and passion, but it's its own thing. And it wants to be, and it starts to give you the tools to really make what you want real. So I sit in that dark theater and I watch this reality manifesting, forming in front of me. I don't have to do anything. It's happening through all these arms and legs and minds and eyes and ears of all these other people, but they're all one with this same idea, with this same desire, all of which came from somewhere in here. It's amazing to see it happen. I don't know how many people get to watch that kind of thing happen, but I'm having that experience. I am allowed that moment of realization that somehow I am one with this larger thing that is occurring. We're all one with this larger thing that is occurring. And the quieter we get, the simpler we get, the stiller we get, the more we understand, or the more we realize our contribution to that, our oneness with that, our wholeness with that. We are not cut off from totality, we are one with totality. We are not separate from the universe, we are one with the universe. Our ego mind is not some tormenting separate entity which most people sense when they go through their life, because it takes on that role. But it really is, when you let go, the tool of the universe. Your hunger is its hunger. Your desire is its desire. It is working in tandem with you, and in the end, it's neither it nor you, it's just happening. So here I am in Manchester, learning in the dark, sitting in the dark, watching light on the stage, brilliant light, LED lights all over the place, creating worlds, New York City, subway stations, Brooklyn, all these things appearing and disappearing, sets moving in and out, and watching the world transform around me as though it is happening in the space of a stage, and it's so metaphorical for the world that's happening around us right now. It's just sparkling lights, guys. It's just, they're smaller than the ones on the stage, but this is just molecules flashing and creating reality, and you are in it. and you are of it, you are it itself, and it is a dazzling display. I mean, look, take a look. This is Manchester. This is outside my window. This is a whole other world. I don't know how it's manifesting. I just know that it is. And every time I turn around, there's another manifestation of something. A hotel. This is my kitchen, living room space. You know, life manifests. It just manifests. And we are here in it. And I'm watching it manifest as a living entity in my granddaughter, as a theatrical presentation in my theatrical life, and as a reality in this life. And it's all part of the same thing, and you're in it just like I am, and there's no difference between us at all. So take a deep breath, get quiet, sit in the darkness of your own theater, and allow this space to manifest the joy and the pain and the wonder of your own being. Talk to you next week. Love you.